Let's start with his comments on Iran, saying that the United States plans to hit Iran again today. Take us behind the scenes in your conversations. What are you hearing?
Yeah, saying that he is going to hit Iran very hard today, Kristen, following the last couple of days after that Apache helicopter was down. Those pilots were rescued from that. But as a result, the president sort of had indicated that Iran would, quote, pay the price in some way with some form of retaliation from the U.S. We have seen a little bit of that, but the president previewing that there's going to be more to come today after being pressed by our colleague Garrett Haake there in the Oval Office. Specifically, he was asked if that is going to mean more bombing. The president said yes. He didn't get into some of the specifics, but we're in this period, Kristen, as you know so well from your recent interview with the president, where there is still a fragile ceasefire in place in terms of the agreement, but a lot of questions are being raised about whether the president actually intends to restart major combat military operations, which he's sort of indicating here that there is going to be a ramp up of some kind of military attacks like what we've seen yesterday. There could be more today. But does that constitute an actual restarting of the war that now kicked off more than 13 weeks ago? That is still a little bit of an open question. But the president has continued to use this language that, again, you pressed him on yourself about indicating there could be a deal that could wrap this all up very soon, that this is moving in a direction at a rapid clip. But really, we have seen this kind of grind to a halt every time there is a little bit of diplomatic movement. And again, the president indicating today that he believes Iran wants to sign a deal, but we just haven't seen that actually become reality at any point really over the course of the ceasefire in the week since he has continued to make these comments and claims that this is all going to be over soon. Kristen.
Monica, I want to ask you about the politics of this before we go to Richard Engel, who has been listening along with us in Jerusalem, again, reiterating that U.S. inflation accelerated for a third straight month in May. That is the backdrop of the midterm elections. President Trump saying, look, all of these prices are going to start to come down once the war ends. But again, struggling to find that off ramp. And again, affordability, the number one issue for voters in these midterm elections, Monica. That comes as, of course, we got results overnight, including in Maine, which is going to be a big battleground. Democrats trying to win that seat back from Susan Collins. Graham Plattner, who has been beset by a number of controversies, winning the primary there. He weighed in on that. Monica, just to reiterate for our viewers, he said, this guy's got a rap sheet. I've never seen anything like it. He's a thug. He says, I know thugs. I had to deal with thugs. There's never been a guy like that that's ever run for office at any level. Of course, President Trump has had his own controversies to contend with over the years. But just to the politics of this moment, Monica, incredibly fraught. How jittery are Republicans about the fact that the president is struggling to wind this war down?
Sure, and I think those things that you just mentioned are completely related, right? The idea that affordability is going to be a major issue for voters in the midterm elections in November. And the way the Democrats view this, they think that Maine could be one of their best potential pickup opportunities if they want to win back the Senate. But the Graham Plattner controversies that you just mentioned certainly could put a roadblock into that. And the president saying things like, quote, I love the inflation, because he says those prices are going to be coming down after the war, is another thing that certainly could get the attention of those midterm voters. The president has been one to dismiss concerns about affordability pretty repeatedly and consistently over the course of this military conflict, promising that prices are going to come down, stressing that those gas prices in particular are going to come down as soon as the war is over. But as we've just been discussing, Kristen, there's nothing that indicates that this conflict actually is over. And certainly the complication of the stranglehold really at the Strait of Hormuz is at the center of all of that. And none of that has been resolved, despite the president putting a naval blockade in place and trying to see if it's possible for those vessels to transit the critical waterway. You have seen gas prices come down a little bit, but certainly nothing close to where they were before the war began. But all of these things are connected, and that is why Republicans, some are certainly nervous about when the president says things like that and sort of dismisses some of the very real concerns that we have heard from voters, certainly during this primary season. Kristen.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.